What's the top? I don't even know the topic.
Hello. Welcome to the Rebuilding Futures podcast. I am your co-host, Kenneth Young. Today we have
It's Aaron Charles.
That's all right.
Shit. And Elric Truvillion is in the building.
Yes, sir.
We do not have Chris Shankles today, but that is okay.
It's all right.
Okay, gentlemen, we really didn't have a topic. Me and Aaron were talking earlier in the week, and we really just wanted to be able to sit back and have a conversation. And something happened. This conversation is going to take a different tone, but I have a question for you gentlemen.
Okay.
Just in our conversation. So, me and Aaron were talking about this earlier. I have a nephew cousin that was murdered earlier this week, about Wednesday, Scoop.
Okay.
So, not a lot of information about it.
Mm-hmm.
Just know that they dropped him off at the hospital. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make it. Was on social media with some people, so we don't exactly know all the. Don't want to put too much out there right now because don't want to harm the investigation, as they say.
Yeah.
But man, I was just thinking about this topic I always have is who is the real enemy?
Yeah, that's a good question, man.
Right.
So when I was talking to Aaron earlier, I said, look, I cannot count on one finger. I can count on one finger how many times somebody I know has been shot, harmed by the police.
Mm-hmm.
How many times somebody I know has been lynched by the Ku Klux Klan? How many times somebody I know has been harmed by what the media puts out for us, or what people put out for us is the enemy that's plaguing our neighborhoods. But I cannot count on two hands how many times somebody I know has actually been murdered by somebody else that I know.
Right.
Two of the same people been murdered that you know.
Yes.
Well, one person murdered, the other person did the shooting.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So I'll go off of both hands if I try to count it out. And then if I add in experiences that you know, Aaron, if I add in experiences that you know, we can't count it on probably all three of our, 10 of our hands, 6 of our hands. So who is the enemy? Who is the enemy?
Man, the enemy is not necessarily the people that the media is going to portray, right? So we know that in America, race relations is a real big thing, and I think the enemy is there's an essence to enemy, right? So enemyism, if you don't mind me saying that, is something that is a core off-kilter thing in people, and you can't designate what that enemy is going to look like, right? I think that one of the failures of us is that we try to tag it to a specific type of people. Maybe like a social group or a race or, whatever, something like that. Maybe somebody from a different neighborhood, different town, whatever that is. But, man, the enemy is a core spiritual off-kilter circumstance that is inside of a lot of different people, no matter what they look like. And the enemy is a lot of times within. We talked last week about that, and Chris was saying that although he grew up in a place that was more privileged than the places he went to, he still went to those places because he was seeking something that those negative environments had to offer, whatever that was. And so the enemy a lot of times is on the inside of us as individuals, and we just allow it to grow. I ran across something that said, the thing about the two dogs, right? You got two dogs inside of you, one good and one evil, and which dog is going to win the fight? And it's the one that you feed. So if you have these different systems of thought inside of yourself, one good and one bad, whichever one that you nurture the most is the one that's going to win. Some people just choose to nurture the evil side and the evil intentions that they have in them. It's not like as a human, we don't all, have negative thoughts, but we don't have to act on those things. It's the people that make the decision to act on those negative impulses that create an enemy in and of themselves, and then they present it to the world.
Right. Well, my take on the enemy is yourself. Like I said, a a couple podcasts back that when you change the enemy change. You know, a lot of people wake up and have feelings of childhood experiences, and they take that on, and it's a mental thing. You know, as a child, as a teenager, we say and do things to people, and not knowing the harm that it does to that person's mind. And so, like, you can have a childhood friend, and you could be mad at that person going all through high school or all through elementary, and then upon your life, you meet that person again after you done revolved into this. You start from an ugly duckling to a swan, and now you still have a vendetta against that person. But that person, not knowing the harm that they done to you mentally, turns you into that beast. Not exactly a cruel, harming beast, but a beast to let people know, or let that person know that I'm bad now, I'm good now, I'm great now, I'm better than what I was in high school or elementary, or I'm better than you. It's like going to your high school reunion. A lot of people show up to the high school reunion for what? Just to show that I'm accomplished, or I'm in a good place. And some people just show up just to see old friends, you know. So that enemy, I'm gonna say, is within yourself, and for us on the streets and things, the guys on the streets and things, they more of in a contest, and they don't want nobody to step on their shoe. They don't want nobody to walk past their car. They don't want to look nobody eye contact. They don't want nobody to look at them for too long, or fear that that person is finna do something to you. So my take on that, the enemy is yourself. Change your enemy change. So if we could start taking the youth and reprogramming their mindset, then they'll understand who the enemy is, and they will understand that how to deal with the situation. Because you can take two young kids, it's crazy. Check this out. So my son the other week took his daughter to the playground, and he said, my daughter was waving at all the kids, and no kids waved back. And she's only 2 years old, and nobody waved back, you know. So as a kid, who's the enemy? No one's the enemy. You see what I'm saying? No one's the enemy. So she, you know, she wasn't mad, she wasn't upset or nothing, but he was, because he's the adult, and he's feeling like no one waving at my kid. Well, nobody. That's okay. But now, take an adult. You go to the park or you go to the club and you waving at everybody, and nobody waving at you. You see that mindset you start getting now? So you the enemy. You know, just because nobody don't want to play with you, nobody don't want to wave at you, it's okay. It's okay. So that's my take.
So you talked about reprogramming young people that have a mindset that's already been affected by, you know, things in this world.
Right.
So, you know, when you were talking about that, the thing that comes to my mind is that, you know, the enemy is somebody who doesn't understand the value and the power of forgiveness. Right. So, you know, we hold things against people so often. Right. And then we have this built up bitterment and resentment. So, you know, this bitterness and resentment. So when that bitterness and resentment sets in and we hold on to that rather than just letting those things go, we start to create ourselves as an enemy. Right. We fashion and we construct that enemy inside of ourselves. When the truth is, if we understood the value and the power in forgiveness and letting things go, then it would make us a whole lot stronger as people, and we wouldn't be enemies of ourselves on such a great level. Right? Because if we choose to not forgive somebody for something and they don't even realize that they've offended us, or they know that they offended us, but we just won't let it go. Well, that's at a certain point not going to affect that person so much. It's going to continue to affect you. Right. So, the enemy is somebody who just doesn't understand forgiveness, man. I had to learn the hard way. I watched a documentary about a man whose daughter was hit by a truck, right? So she was killed. And the person that hit her was someone that he had been investing into personally and just really trying to help the family. The person who had the daughter that passed away is of, great financial stature, and the person he was helping is not. The old man that hit the daughter didn't realize that he had killed the daughter or that he had hit a person because the family stopped on the side of the road. One of their other kids had to go pee, so she was, the son was peeing on the side of the road. The daughter took off across the road, and the truck hit her and just kept on going. None the wiser. This is an old man, right? None the wiser. He had no idea he had hit a child, and they had to find some way to forgive this person, and it took everything in them to get to a place of forgiveness. But when they did, it helped them to have a better life and not a bitter life. Right. So, in speaking about who the enemy is, whether it's in a in a very aggressive environment, or it's in an environment where things happen that are circumstantial, man, the enemy is going to be you chewing at you, refusing to let things go and refusing to move on with life in a way that's going to be productive. So I think forgiveness is one of those major elements that you have to introduce in a soft but strategic way, so that we can. It's about the know-how, right? So we say, okay, well, we need to help reform people's minds. And the biggest disconnect for me when I was a young person is knowing where I was, knowing where I wanted to be, but not knowing how to navigate that road in between. And so one of those major elements that I introduced to my life by the grace of God was forgiveness. Right. Not holding things against people. Right. And that changed a lot for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ken.
When I say enemy, and Aaron, when you brought it up, it was what I heard from you the first time around was kind of like the enemy is not a demographic of people.
Right.
So it's hard for us to place it a demographic of people. So my nephew this happened to him up on Forest Lane. So my first instinct is Forest Lane. You want to categorize it. Okay. And the reason you want to categorize it is we're all trying to figure out how to get to a solution. Because if we don't figure out how to get to a solution, we would lose all of our young men.
Right.
So when I say enemy, I'm trying to figure out the best way to identify, to go at a standpoint of how do we fix it. So when we look at the news, we're at home, when you're watching the news or you're on social media, they're going to always point out to us that one thing is the enemy.
Right.
So it's the police. We need to defund the police. Yet, from our standpoint, we're talking to the police, trying to get the police to help us figure out who killed them.
Right.
So from our standpoint, it can't be the police. Right. So we wouldn't go with, okay, let's defund the police. We want the police to have more resources
to help you,
to help us get to the bottom line.
For sure.
But like Aaron said, and like you said, Scoop, I can't say it's Forest Lane. Because there's a lot of people on Forest Lane that will never pull out a gun and shoot anyone. Right. So if it's not Forest Lane, it's not the police. We've identified it's not the police. I can't say it's the Republicans. I can't say it's the Democrats, because the person that shot my nephew probably does not vote.
Right.
Okay. So the narrative that is putting out there for us to go vote against, when I say how do we fix it, is part of our tools for fixing things is to vote, get different laws in place. So how can we identify, if we're trying to identify, and from y'all's perspective, from my perspective, is, man, it may be this group of people. And then I'm listening to Aaron saying, Ken, it's not really a group of people, it's a spirit of people. That spirit can be in anybody.
Right.
And then listening to School, it's kind of like, well, Ken, and it's also your cell phone, where you put yourself.
Right.
Because you can put yourself in a place where there's a spirit of people that's a bad choice for you. So how do we identify it down to a thing that we can try to fix? Because I really, right now, you just want to fix it. Like, how do we stop our young kids? He's 20 years old. Now, how do we just stop 20-year-olds from killing other 20-year-olds and seeing the value in their life?
I think that some of the things that you're doing right now lend to that answer, right? So you're introducing coding to an underserved population of people, and it's creating opportunity at in the formative years of our youth, so that they have something to grab a hold of, and they can see value in themselves, and they can also see value in greater opportunities. When my ex-wife had a community center, she had an exposure product. She had an exposure program, and part of the exposure program was taking busloads of kids to other sides of town to show them a life that they've never seen before.
Right.
Clean streets that don't have potholes in them, liquor stores and churches on every corner. These are just really nice neighborhoods with very nice parks and, different institutions, taking them to colleges and taking them to museums and exposing these people to things that they wouldn't see on a day-to-day basis, right? I think that part of helping people to get out of the mindset that they're in is showing them something different. Right. So when you create value, or you introduce them to value that's already been created and established, but they have no access to because of proximity, then when you show these people different things, it'll open up their mind to designate what is actually possible. Right? You may not grab them all. Statistics say you won't grab them all. But if out of a group of 100 children in a neighborhood, if you could take 40 of them to a place and expose them to something different, then 5 of them may say, this is the reason why I chose something different. And when you whittle down to those numbers, those 5 may be really successful. There may be another 10 out of that group that are more successful than they would have been, but just didn't grab the same success as the smaller number. So I think that exposure to different elements of life, exposure to different opportunities of possible, those things really are going to lend towards it. Now, you said, okay, so this happened on Forest Lane, which, not being from DFW, is still an infamous place because you hear about it in different parts of Texas. You just do. Like, Houston, you hear about 3rd Ward, South Park, 5th Ward. You hear about those places.
Acres Homes.
Right, Acres Homes, different places like that. So when you hear about these places, although I do believe it as a truth that you shouldn't designate any one particular social group, that spirit that we talked about is more prevalent in those areas because they don't have exposure to opportunity generationally.
Right. And I'm still gonna go back to say what I said is it's a mindset who the enemy is, because you only have so many hours in a day. Okay, there's 24 hours in a day. Okay, if I have 24 hours and I allow somebody to take 60 seconds, because all it takes is 60 seconds for somebody to take those 24 hours of my day and change my life. By me pulling the trigger, running over the car, stabbing with a knife. I won't allow a person to take those hours that I have in a day, 24 hours, to turn my life upside down. Because that's all it's going to take. That incident that happened on Forest Lane, they had a choice: to pull the trigger or hold a conversation. He allowed himself to be pulled in a situation that took his whole life. You only have 24 hours in a day. And that one day, that incident took less than 60 seconds. And then the next 60 seconds, your nephew was killed. So this guy's whole life then changed. For whatever reason it would have been to take a person's life. Maybe stepped on his shoes, maybe owed him some money. But to allow a person to take me away from my family, I have to think about that. And so that's why I go back to the youth, to the young kids. Their first reaction to anything, any situation they get in, is violence. Violence is not the answer. Violence is not the solution. If you can't sit down and talk to a person or not necessarily sit down, hold a conversation with a person to resolve a situation. I'm part of an organization, and within this organization, this brotherhood, if I have a problem with a brother, we don't leave the hall unless that problem don't necessarily have to be resolved, but we come to an understanding. So you get into it with a person, and whatever the case may be, and you have a understanding of the situation, then you don't have to worry about killing, shooting, being upset or mad, because we only have 24 hours in a day.
So let me jump in here with you. So something that is important is the mindset.
The mindset.
Right? Because if a person doesn't understand how big this world is and how limitless the opportunities in this world are, then they're going to hold on to the things that make them feel powerful. Right? So as men on this earth, we know that something that we're taught to do is grow up with the mindset of, hey, I'm a conqueror. And we show our strength and we show our ability. And every man is typically going to want to show some display of how great or how strong he is. Right. And if I can't be great in things that serve the world well, then I know that I can continue being great at things that don't serve it well. Right. So like if I know that I'm not going to make a play for education and show the level of intelligence that I have because I'm not willing to do the work, or when I grew up, there was no support in value in that arena, then what I'm going to do is continue to show how ignorant I could be, because if I can't be smarter than you, then I can still be more ignorant than you no matter how hard you try. So my brother told me something a few years ago, and it stuck with me, because even though it's not a real positive thing, it makes a lot of sense. He said, whoever cares the least holds the most power.
That's right.
Whoever cares the least. And so we find ourselves in situations where we are the enemy because people know that without having a conscious thought of it. And they say, well, you know what? If you want to be a certain way with me, then I'm going to show you and prove to you that I care less than you do. And so I'm willing to take more risk to show you how much I don't give a damn. And I'm going to put everybody around us at risk, because I'm going to prove to you that even though I'm unable to think my way through this situation in a positive way, I can just think it through in the most negative way and control you by my negative actions.
Right. I see, man, you was having that conversation about carrying a gun, and I was explaining to you why I don't carry a gun. Okay. To pull that trigger or to take that life, it's not necessarily a gun. I'm not going to just put it on the gun. To take a person's life, you have to be, I have to be myself personally. I have to be pushed to a certain level that I don't even want to go to. That I'm afraid to even go there. If I had never even been to that point. But when I was younger, I was a security officer. And I had the opportunity to pull my gun one time. And when I pulled that gun, a million thoughts went through my head. A whole lot of thoughts went through my head in a split second. When you pull that trigger, or when you take that life, or before you take that life, there's a million thoughts going to go through your head. And you have to do some critical thinking.
Right.
Some critical thinking is going to have to be done within seconds. So I come to the conclusion to that I didn't want to go to that place. I didn't want to go there. So that story ended at I didn't pull the trigger. The guy did have a weapon. He was in a dark place. Only thing I could see was the shining, because he had a nickel-plated gun, and I could see the shine from the gun. I didn't take his life. He didn't take my life, But after that, after that experience, it done something to me. The thought of I could have took this young guy's life. I still would have went to prison. Went to jail. You know that's protocol. I went to jail, but then I'd had to fight my way of proving I was in the right, and knowing if the company was going to back me. Now, fast forwarded, I'm a grown man. Well, I was a grown man then, but I'm on my own, and to take a person's life, my life really has to be, or my family really has to be, in a major threat, because it's fittest of survival. But our young kids, our young generation now has a different outlook. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care, and they are not thinking. The first thing they want to do is violence. First thing they want to do is violence.
Let's go. That's I want to jump in on that part, because that's kind of what I'm looking for. That's the point I'm trying to get to. You said you have a place now where y'all have a hall, and you cannot leave that hall in a disagreement, right?
Right.
But when we were younger, and I'm knowing, we were knowing each other down to 30 years, and we're younger, it just would have been a fight. So you're in a place now, which means at some point between your younger age and your older age now, there was a program, there was an update installed into the software. Y'all know I love programming. There's an update that was installed into the software of Elric Truvillion that says that this is how you actually handle problems. And our young kids, they don't have that update, and they're born as blank slates. They're born not knowing any of the stuff that we just said. So if they're choosing violence right now, that means at some point there was a program installed in them that said violence. And that's part of what I'm saying has to be the enemy, because Aaron, you were talking about the coding class we're doing. So we're doing a coding class in July. We just finished one in the schools. I was talking to a mother about her daughter was great in coding, third grade. When I say was picking it up, she was the only third grade. Everybody else was pretty much fifth and sixth. So she was hanging with them. So I talked to her grandmother. I was saying, look, we're going to have this exposure. And it's funny you said exposure, Aaron. Ours is called Spark.
Okay.
So I said, we're going to have a Spark in the park, STEM in Hamilton Park. She should be there just to get this exposure. And the grandmother was like, okay, it's, when is it? Told her when it was. Oh, wait a minute. We have track. And I'm a sports person. So I'm going, yeah, we always have sports. There's always a sports activity. But I'm looking at your granddaughter, the way she was picking it up. And then, Scooch, you said critical thinking. So it is critical thinking. You were able to think critically in that situation. You went through, like you said, a million things went through your head, and you got to the solution that pulling the trigger was not worth
not one of them.
The other things. These kids don't get to think critically. So at some point in their programming, somewhere, critical thinking is being removed and something else is being installed. And to me, that has to be part of what the enemy is, because everybody should be able to think critically.
Well, yes, that's a yes and no. That's a yes and no. Because we're not born with those skills. It's like having six senses. Everybody have the ability to do critical thinking, but everybody don't act on it. We all do. I guess I'm contradicting myself. We all do critical thinking, but we don't act on it to satisfy the situation. We act on it to satisfy our what we want. So, like I said, it had to be a thought decision where both parties is in agreement. So, like I said, when I had that critical thinking to pull that trigger or not, I had the time to understand that if I pull the trigger, I kill him or wound him, and I go to prison or I go to jail. Is my company going to back me? Am I right? Am I wrong? Those are the things. Was it really a gun You know, was it something? It probably wouldn't have been a gun, and then I'd have been in a situation. Then I had to say, did I want to go in that situation? So what I do is, anytime I'm upset, and anytime I'm mad, I don't make a decision, because making a decision when you're mad and upset or afraid, then you find yourself making the wrong decision. And a lot of this had to come with me as a child growing up. Sports is a lot that taught me. Coaches, a lot of my coaches taught me. A lot of my coaches was instilled in me. A lot of my teachers was instilled in me, and I had to pay attention to what they were saying. At the time, I didn't want to, but as life went on, I started understanding. So critical thinking is a must that we need to bring to the forefront with this younger generation, and games that we play helps the mind to organize critical thinking. When a person is thinking, chess, Connect Four, these type of games are critical thinking. Checkers, it helps develop the thinking of a person making the decision, because in the game of chess, I was taught that you have to already know 3 moves before you even make them. So in this game of life, I play as chess. I'm always thinking my next move before I even make it. So,
I mean, but think about that. You play chess,
right?
Okay. Growing up, we had those types of games.
Right.
That was all we had.
Right.
What are they playing now?
Chess. It's still chess.
Fortnite.
They're playing Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, they're playing Grand Theft Auto.
Okay. What's the goal of Grand Theft? So you just said chess helped you learn to think critically. It also shaped you because you had to plan out moves and moves ahead.
Right.
Offensive, defenses.
Right.
They're playing games where you can kill somebody, re-ups,
violence.
You make points by doing the things that we're telling them not to do.
Right.
So I know I'm harping on this.
No, bro.
But I'm saying somewhere there's an enemy that we can identify.
That's it.
Because we didn't have that shit growing up. We were outside doing stuff. We were inventing things.
Right.
We were making things.
Right.
We played games that forced us to think critically. We're taking a generation of people, and so let's say for 3 hours a day, because if you don't understand that we're all computers, we're all programs. So like right now, I have an iPhone. It's been telling me for the last 3 days, you need to update. You need to update. When does your iPhone update? Anybody have iPhone?
Yeah, when you sleep.
So it updates when you go to sleep.
Right.
It's not ironic that they're making computers that mimic us.
Right.
We update when we go to sleep, right?
Sure.
So when we go to sleep, that phone says, this is all the new stuff I should be doing as a phone. So, Scoop, me and you, sports, chess, we go to sleep, our brain says, this is what you need tomorrow. They play Grand Theft Auto, okay? And then they're listening to something that's saying, kill him, effer.
Yeah.
For,
that's programming.
Let's call it 8 hours out the day.
Yeah.
And then when you go to sleep, your brain goes, this is the new update.
Right.
Yeah.
And you wake up in the morning, like you said, Scoot, they're thinking critically.
Yeah.
Their critical thinking is, you said your critical thinking is my company gonna bag me up.
Yeah.
Their critical thinking is, I better shoot you before you shoot me.
Right, because that's what they're being fed. That's what's being loaded into them on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, and then when they go to sleep, their mind processes all that, and they wake up a brand new person and says, hey, this is a belief of mine.
So if they're building computers, and right now they're on to quantum computers. I don't know if anybody know what quantum computers is.
Man, you know you're the smartest one in the room, man.
Research it.
Yeah.
Quantum is just computers that compute on an atomic level. So they're computing at the smallest element that we know. So the information that they can hold is crazy. Mm-hmm. If people have studied that far, and they're talking about what they can do, they've studied psychology, and they know what does what. Who's allowing us to program? And even though, like you say, Scoot, it's part of as parents, we should know, right? So as parents, you're supposed to be in control. But we can be as we can try to be in control as much as we want to. You know, Scoot, you know me, you know how I am with those girls, those twins.
Yeah.
I try to keep them away from the stuff I don't want them to hear.
Mm-hmm.
They came home the other day, and they were like, we were in the car, and when we were in the car with their mom, it's all gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And then with me, they always say, Dad, I don't want to listen to no more podcasts and no more YouTube. So every once in a while, we hit the radio. They playing this song. I'm not really paying attention to it. They go, oh, that's the song our teacher plays. Okay, cool. I'm in the car again. I'm listening to the song. Oh, this song kind of catchy. I'm starting to listen to it.
And what song is this?
Okay. In the song, it's a woman singing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what she's talking about?
Sex.
No. She say, I might kill my boyfriend. I might kill my ex-boyfriend because he found somebody else. Now, I'd rather be in jail than alone. And she repeats this throughout the whole song. And at the end of the song, she said, guess what? I just killed him and his ex. I didn't do it on drugs. I didn't do it on alcohol. I was sober when I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd rather be in hell than to be alone.
So you're saying society is the enemy?
I'm just trying to identify where is it coming from.
See, that's where they're making money at too now.
Yeah. So, all right. So let me run one by you real quick. So, got a young man. Talked to y'all about him off air about 3 weeks ago. His name is Malik Pryor, right? Young football star. So this guy came up, grew up in a home that, man, you know, at this point, I got to shamefully admit that I was a part of walking in and out this house, you know, hanging out with his parents. We were all doing things that we shouldn't have done. This is back when, you know, drugs was a major factor in my life, whether we were selling them, doing them, whatever we were doing. And, you know, he was just a child growing up in that young football star. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he had a great opportunity to go to college on a scholarship and then need a little bit of financial aid. And, you know, this type of guy whose mechanics say that he could have made it to the league, no problem. Mm-hmm. Right now, he's in jail. He's got a murder case. Before he went to jail, his younger brother was killed at the family home. Mm-hmm. Right? So his younger brother was killed in the garage of the family home. Somebody drove by, shot the house up, killed the younger brother. And ever since then, Malik hadn't been the same. He already had challenges because he had to drop out of school behind some things that went on with the financial aid, and he sees it a certain way, and the people that were involved with that part of his life see it a different way. But all in all, he wasn't able to go back to school. So an opportunity was missed there. His younger brother gets killed. So another massive thing in his life is taken away. So you have a tragedy because he grew up his whole life feeling like he was going to be a breakout football star. Didn't do it. Sports psychology says that when people who have a mind for athletics and for high achievement miss those opportunities, it affects them in a way that's really hard for people who are not wired like that to understand. So he suffered a loss right there. Then he suffered another loss when his younger brother was killed. And then what set in was a lot of psychological trauma, and he started to experience different levels of psychosis. So going through that, he got to a point where he couldn't be in a home with anybody else because he would hear things and he would experience abnormalities, you know, with his mental state. And so he was in an apartment pretty much by himself, and he would start getting into it with his girlfriend at the time, who was the mother of his daughter. So she created a little bit of space because she couldn't be there with him constantly from all the yelling and arguing. And he would get into it with a neighbor as a consequence because the neighbor would come over, knock on the door, make sure that everything was okay between the two of them, and he didn't take too well to that. They would get into it. Well, this neighbor ended up being found dead in his apartment. Wow. I'm not saying Malik killed him. I'm not saying he didn't. But now this young man is in jail, charged for the murder of this man because he was dead in the apartment for days before it was reported. And so in a situation like that, somebody who had all the opportunity in the world but had a lot of challenges to go along with it, his natural ability says that he should be a success, his nature says that he was equipped with things that can make him successful, but his nurture warred against the things that he was innately born with for his own success. So who's the enemy in a situation like that? Because we're trying to identify an enemy. I mean, I just want to pick something apart with you and use it as a case study because it's really important to me. This is a young man who is near and dear to my heart. When I was gone in my time of incarceration, I wrote to him all the time. And people don't write to you when you're incarcerated, especially for over a decade. And guess what? He wrote me back. Young man, right? Growing up. And so now he's in jail. Like, who's the enemy in a situation like that?
But isn't it, right now we can go in there in the kitchen, find some bleach and clean with bleach, and bleach is not that bad, right?
Right.
We mix it with a few more chemicals, we better get out of here.
Right.
So in a situation like that, where you say you take one trauma and another trauma, you mix it with that last trauma, then you get something that nobody can live with.
Right.
So it may be, and Scoot, I know you may think I'm picking on the same thing. I just keep going back to the programming. You take a trauma, you mix it with another trauma, and then you mix it with music, and then you mix it with a game. Pick any game. I'm not picking on a game.
Right.
You pick a game, you're going to end up with something that nobody can live with.
Right.
We can live with bleach, but there are a few things in the kitchen you mix that bleach with, and we all got to leave this building for a while. Yeah, ammonia. We got to leave the building for a while. So you take our kids and you give them a trauma, right? You take the dad out the house. Trauma 1.
That's a trauma.
Okay, there's all type of statistics they say right now. A dad in the house, we're about to get in trouble. A dad in the house statistically produces a more successful child than the mom in the house by herself. That's statistics. That's correct. That's not Ken.
That's not your feelings.
Aaron, that's not Eric. Right. That's not the Rebuilding Futures podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
That's statistics.
Right.
Yeah.
So you take the dad out the house, you get one trauma, and let's bring a stepdad in. Okay. Let's bring a stepdad in who don't want to be a dad to you, and he a dad to the other kids.
All right.
But he don't want to be a stepdad to you. Trauma 2.
Right.
You mix alone time, video game, music. You got somebody that nobody can live with.
Right. Right.
So to me, the enemy is almost, we're going back towards that same thing. And I'm saying it's the person that's holding the puppet strings over here saying, look at this. Oh, it's the Republicans. Republicans don't want to give you crap. So you got to vote against the Republicans. Oh, it's this thing over here. It's the police. We need to defund the police. It's this over here. When all the time it could be the person that's doing all of this and allowing our kids to hear stuff that, why should my 13-year-old daughters hear a song that's saying, my boyfriend broke up with me, so I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in jail than in hell. And it's a catchy song. The tune is catchy. Everything about it is catchy. And they playing. So what are they thinking? If they didn't have parents, if there wasn't a dad in the house, they would be thinking the first boyfriend that breaks up with him,
I'm going to do something to him.
I have a right.
Yeah.
Right? That's what the song is saying.
Right.
You can't leave me. I have a right.
But see, these artists, they make these songs to a point that what they're really talking about, you really have to be thinking to really understand the song, because she probably wasn't really, because I don't know the song, but a lot of artists they're not actually talking about what they're talking about. She's saying that she's going to kill her boyfriend, but she probably was talking about a drug, or she probably was talking about something. I get that. Maybe not in that song.
No, I'm telling you.
But
no, that's what
even so. I think it goes bigger than just saying the artist or the song. I think Ken hit on the main vein.
He did.
About the whole program of it all, because at 13. They don't have the you will not be sentenced to death at 13 years old if you end up taking a life, and that's why, because you are still in the developmental years of your life, right? They say your brain has not fully grown to where you're an adult and everything is finished growing and you have all the faculties you need in order to make rational, conscious decisions.
Right.
And so at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way up to, they cut it off at 18. But the truth is, you really, until you, in my case anyway, till you about 25 years old, don't have everything that you need inside of you to say, hey, listen, there's some long-lasting effects to the things that I take in and that I allow to come out of me, right? So think about this, right? Just to put it in perspective. So this is how I view myself. I'm like a nation in and of myself. Right? Every person in this room is a nation. And I came to that revelation when I realized that now at this point, I'm a father and I'm a grandfather. At 42 young, we procreate early. So I just had to put that in there. But so when I realized that everyone in my family, in my lineage, I look at, this is my family. But every family is a family now. Right? So if each man in this room is a nation, then you have to fortify that nation. There's not a nation on the face of the earth that doesn't do what? Secure its border.
Right.
So how do you secure the border? If you are a nation, if I'm a nation, well, there's only a few ways that things can enter into you, right? The most prevalent ways are going to be this. Through your ears, that's a gate right there.
Right.
That's the wall. Through your eyes, through your nose, through your mouth, right? Through other areas, your sexual organs and things like that.
Right.
And so you have things that come into your nation that way and things that come out of your nation that way. And so if we have our children who don't understand the benefit of fortifying that nation and making sure that you protect your border walls, and they have no gates. They may have walls of protection because they understand what we taught them when they were little. They don't understand the power and the significance of the gate. The wall is one thing. The gate is totally different. And while they have their gates laid down and their nation is exposed, man, it's tough because things just go in and out, in and out, in and out of our children. And then they do whatever it is that they think is best. And these children are the sum of what we teach them and the things that enter them when we're not around.
Now watch this. You go to another country and it's different. It's different. See, it's the environment. Okay, so now you said 13, right?
Yes.
In some countries, kids have been on their own at 8.
Right.
And their mindset and their critical thinking is crucial because it's they have to survive. So the neighborhoods, back in the early 80s, late 80s, when drugs hit my community, I watched a house of girls and boys had to raise themselves because their mom and dad was on crack and took their mama.
Okay.
So now they had to mature a whole lot faster. So I took from that and I started saying it with my kids. I have to. I can't say I can't wait till my child get to 13 and start teaching them this. I can't wait till my child get to 12 and teach them this. As soon as I can get the attention of my child, I'm gonna start talking to him and developing that mind. It's, as a parent, you're responsible to help to program and direct that child to a positive mindset to adapt to society. Like you were saying, Ken, the music. As a parent, you have to monitor the music. As a parent, you have to monitor the games. As a parent, you have to watch what comes in your house. Like you were saying, that the nation.
Right.
Every person is a nation. But as the king or the queen, you're responsible that comes on the other side of that gate.
Correct.
Yeah, but
hit him, Ken.
Think about this. Like I said, in the car with their mom, they're listening to gospel. In the car with their dad, they're listening to YouTube and podcasts. If I don't send them to school, we go to jail. So you tell me I got to send them to school, and it's the teacher. And I have nothing against teachers. I love teachers.
Right. Y'all do.
But it's the teacher because we're losing teachers. Teachers are becoming younger and younger. So it's the teacher that's letting them listen to that.
Okay.
And even sometimes with their friends. So we try to pick their friends and we put them in, like me, I try to put them in a place where I felt would be best for success. As all parents, I think that's what we try to do.
Right.
We do.
We can monitor so much. And then the state goes, but I need them for this amount of time.
Right.
So if the state is saying I need them for this amount of time, and then that's where they get that information, I'm still going back to, I'm trying to identify where's my enemy in this.
Okay, so, and I get that. Trust me, once again, like I said, you're responsible for what comes in that gate. So, like you said, you caught that song, you caught that. Now, it's up to you to explain. Okay, this is wrong. This is not right. Even though they know right from wrong, don't get me wrong, at a certain age, but you have to let them know the ability and the effect that this song is having. I don't think that's a good song. And see, believe it or not, most kids are just there for the beat and the hook.
Yeah, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the message is still being downloaded into these people, because we might be there on an app on the phone because it can turn our face into something that is like an African warrior or something like that. That's what we're there for. Or we might think it's funny that we can put on our face. Oh, so the Reface app, when they put you like in a movie scene and all that type of stuff, we're there just to get those little videos and say, oh man, I got one. I said, I'm Captain Jack Sparrow. This look crazy right here, and it's my face. But the people who put that out there are here for a different reason, right? They give you just enough benefit to harvest all of your information and to bolster their facial recognition software and to be able to track you in any place that you go to on the face of the earth. Right. Like right now, the whole thing with China and TikTok and America and all that, and America thinking about banning TikTok, is because they're collecting more information on Americans than the American government is collecting. Right. So we went from, I was just explaining this earlier. So we went from a place where one of the most valuable things on the face of this earth was salt. Right? That was one of the most valuable commodities on the face of the earth. Then land was one of the most valuable commodities. Then gold and diamond, those resources were one of the most valuable commodities. Right now, the most valuable commodity that we have on the face of this earth is information. And so since information is so valuable, and we know, us, the men in this room, we know that we have a conscious thought of what is of true value right now, and we're making an effort today to try to identify what the enemy is that wars against us. I have to go back to the fact that it's the mindset, and if we talk about the mindset, then we're talking about information, just like Ken said, the things that get loaded into you, because it's just information. And so how do we change the information that's loaded into ourselves first as leaders, and then into the people who we have leadership over? Because we talked about every man being a nation, but just like America is a nation, we also have, we govern Puerto Rico. We govern other places that are not geographically attached to us as a nation. They're like our children provinces or our children nations, right? Although they're independent, we still have to find some way to support them. And just like when the storm hit Puerto Rico, we didn't respond in Puerto Rico like we did when the storms hit the coastal U.S. Right? And it's tough because it's a little bit outside of our reach. It's a little different, right? So the things that we know and the things that we use to fortify ourselves, although we may have those resources available for the people that we have a governing authority over, they don't always get to that place in the time that we want them to get to. And sometimes it's going to have an effect on that other government, meaning our children. Right. So I think that we're in an information war when it comes to identifying the enemy. If a guy walked into my office one day and we were talking, I have a lot of people that come in and out of my office every day. And we were talking about children. So his daughter and son, I think, were just right at about 12 and 13 years old. And he said, man, they don't have cell phones. They don't have cell phones, and they don't have smart TVs in their room. They don't have any of that.
So they're attached from the world.
Right. I said, why? At 13? He said, yeah. He said, because that's just like having a big ass sewage pipe that I just put into my children and allow the world to just dump sewage into them all day, every day when I'm not around. He said, I refuse to let the world dump sewage into my children. And people look at us like we're strange parents because we have a difference between the way we raise our kids and the way that they do. He said, but my children aren't as exposed to the things that their children are. We're trying to keep them away from that negative element.
Now watch this.
No, go ahead, Scoop.
Now watch this. Just like what Ken was saying. this world, it's going to be hard. With the way I raise my kids, I expose them to everything. Meaning that when I didn't expose them to, I ain't gonna say I exposed them to drugs, but I explained to them, this is the situation I explained to them. I said, if you start smoking cigarettes, you're gonna start smoking weed. Mm-hmm. If you start smoking weed, you're gonna start smoking crack. If you start smoking crack, you're gonna pop pills, you're gonna do all of this. It's gonna be a chain reaction. And then I said, now, all the kids that you're going to school with, they're selling, smoking, and using drugs. Watch how they be before you graduate. See, I started programming my kids to understand how life is going. All the kids that came to school with the fresh clothes, the Jordans and all that, I said, now watch when they graduate from school. See, right now, they're getting all this because their parents are buying it. But when they become on their own, watch and see how they're gonna be. So, what I'm saying is, you have to monitor what comes across that gate. And by you monitoring and making your village understand the right and wrong, then the violence won't be so they won't be so quick to go to violence.
Now, I agree with you there. My question is, I'm gonna go back to my original question. So I'm saying somebody putting it over the gate. You get me? Right. I'm going, we can monitor, but I'm trying to get to who's putting it over the gate. So back to what you said, and Aaron brought up something interesting with TikTok. And everybody's going, okay, and the government tells us, we're really worried about the information that TikTok is getting from all of our people. Right. When part of it is we're really worried about the information, but we're really worried about the information that they're giving. Because TikTok makes information so readily available. People are learning about history that they didn't know about. We're learning about more African-American history on TikTok than you ever learned in 12 years in school.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So is it maybe they don't want us to get the information? I'm not saying it, but maybe they don't want us to get the information. But when we're talking about my daughters and the 13-year-olds and then updating your phones and the games we play, what they know, and anybody can read it for themselves, is if you take a 13-year-old, like Aaron said, who's not fully developed yet, and you let them hear this song, and Scoot, you say it's for the beat, right? Beat is always catchy.
It's catchy.
If the beat is catchy, then you listen to the song. And before you know it, my twins will tell me, Dad, I'm really just listening to the beat. Everybody says that as a kid, right?
Right, of course.
And then I tell them, great, you're right. But why you singing a song? You didn't know you were memorizing the song. So people understand that if I can get this 13-year-old and I can get her hooked on this beat, when she goes to sleep, she downloads the lyrics. So when she gets into a situation, so like Scoot, the situation you ran where you had to decide to pull the trigger, now where do ideas come from? We don't just pull them. When you're assessing or critically thinking, you're going into all the information in your head and coming up with an outcome. So if the information in your head is, if my boyfriend breaks up with me, I get to kill him. You're not thinking it, but in a split second, like Scoot, you say 60 seconds can change your life. In a split second, when you access information, your brain goes into whatever you downloaded, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going, my boyfriend just broke up with me. What do I do next? Your brain goes, searches information. It says kill him. And if you don't have enough self-control in that short amount of time, you go, I killed him. And that's why you see people when they get in court, they go, I have no idea what happened. I don't even know how it happened. I tried to access information and everything inside of me because I didn't download enough good thoughts.
Right.
And something else that they know, like I always tell people, research for yourself, spend some time yourself. There are ideas out there. We get ideas of 10,000 a minute, something like that. A lot of ideas.
Yeah. Just
floating around Earth. Mm-hmm. How do you get the ideas?
Well, the things you see, the things you hear, and your senses, the things you smell, those are your ideas, your daydreaming. Your mind is working. And once again, I go back to what I was saying. The games we played as kids develop our mind to think. Chess, checkers. A lot of people laugh. Connect Four.
That's my favorite, by the way.
Yeah, spades. Just card games. These are things that's, preparing you to do critical thinking. And we don't look at it as that way, because to play these games and be good at them, you have to think. Football, basketball, develop, critical thinking. Now, the games that they're doing now, these are the games, I didn't allow that to come into my house. It's a lot of things I didn't allow to come to my house because of the outcome, the mindset. Once again, like I said, as a parent, we are at a responsibility to monitor what comes in and out of our gate. I made sure that, a lot of times I bust in my boys' room, because I knew how I was with my parents. My parents didn't monitor me as they could have. So I got away with a whole lot. So I knew that. So I would bust in my kids' room. I would find condoms. I would find, different little odds and ends things,
If I summed it up, I say different little odds and ends. I'm going to spare y'all right now.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I know his son listening.
Yeah. And, at a point, I had to explain to him, this is why we're not doing this, and this is why we're not doing that. And certain foods we didn't eat, certain things we didn't do, and I just didn't take it out of their life. I didn't do it. I explained to them, we're not doing this because this is not where we're trying to go. This is not where we're trying to be. Conduct yourself. Not only my kids, I'm not going to say not only my kids, my grandkids. I have because I believe it takes a village, and that's what we're doing now. It's a parent or a child right now listening to this podcast right now, or this my Facebook. If I see you doing something, I'm gonna talk to you, explain to you, hey man, look, it's another way, a different way you can go about doing that. So it's gonna take a village. Now, can I disarm a young kid with a pistol? I don't think I'm ready for that challenge.
Me neither. So
but I would try. But get him or her to look at it a different way. But it's the environment. In my hometown, these kids are 13 to 14 years old.
Where you from?
Bogalusa, Louisiana.
You from Bogalusa, Louisiana.
BOG, baby. And the younger kids, man, they done start taking a lot of sports, activities for these young kids to do. And to be honest with you, man, they're not bad kids. They just don't have anything to do.
So because Ken is getting us back on track. He keep coming back and saying, okay, so let's get back to it. What I'm trying to do is I want to make sure that I identify what the enemy is. And so let's talk about it. So the enemy of what? Right? Because just because someone is an enemy of one thing doesn't necessarily mean that they're an enemy of another thing.
Right.
So the enemy of what? So is it the enemy of progress? Is it the enemy of safety? Is it the enemy of education? Is it the enemy of advance? Is it the enemy of generational success and wealth? What enemy are we trying to find right now?
Well,
no, I'm going the enemy of us, the enemy of us as a people.
And I feel that's if you go to that enemy of, once again I go back to what I said, you change your enemy change. Man, it's your mind thought.
Who is your enemy though?
You are the enemy, because now, and the reason why I say you the enemy, because it's the choice that you make. So now watch
Wait a
this.
minute, hold on, School. I hate because you said choice.
Yeah, it's the choice that you
we
make.
keep talking about choices, but when you understand where your choices come from,
Right.
Okay. When right now you go outside, you on your motorcycle, you got a radio?
Yeah.
You got a radio.
Loud.
What station you listen to the most?
I don't.
No, I'm saying, but do you? If you listen to the radio,
Sir Charles Jones, he's Sir Charles Jones. He just listen to.
I'm blue.
Yeah.
If you listen to the radio, what station would it be?
The local station.
Okay, let's say 104.5.
Yeah.
What is 104.5?
It's a wave, a radio wave.
It's a radio wave.
Right.
I'm saying, so you can listen 94.5, you can listen 97.9, you can listen 104.5.
Right.
You turn that station to get what you want.
Information.
Right?
Mindset.
The information that you want. When you listen to a specific thing, you're stuck at a specific station.
Right.
And so it's hard for you to make choices that are on 107.5 if you constantly have your personal radio, who you are, tuned into 94.9.
Right.
If I'm listening to a music say kill, 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 when I'm in a situation to make a choice, I can't make a choice on 107.5 that's never played on 97.9.
Right.
I can only delve into the ideas that are floating around this earth at 97.9.
Because that's the frequency that you tap into. Yes, sir.
And so something is keeping and is trying to keep us set at a frequency.
Yes, sir.
Let me give you information that won't even allow you to make choice. You can't make a choice that you don't have. The better choices are on a different wavelength,
right,
a different station.
Right.
So if you grow up in a house that's bad, a neighborhood that's bad, an area that's bad, like we said, we can't say Forest Lane, let's call it the spirit of Forest Lane.
Okay.
You grew up in an area where there's a spirit of Forest Lane. You listening to this, whenever you come across anything, the only choice you can make is the choice on that frequency, because when you tap into your brain and go, what do I do now? What you hear is violence.
Right. So I tell you this. So, because the enemy and having something that wars against you isn't necessarily always going to come down to drugs, killing, raping, robbing. It's not always going to be that, right? Because this is a wide net when we talk about things that war against us as humans and as men. So, man, I have a job that, man, I'm just going to tell you right now, when I accepted the job, I didn't know what to expect. And then things happen that make me eternally thankful and grateful for the employment that I have. But there's been some very frustrating days in there. Some days where I sat back in my seat and said, I don't know if this is something I want to continue to do, and deeply contemplated not doing it at all, walking away from it. But then I got an opportunity to go to another location within this same company, right? Mm-hmm. Had that experience over there. And when I came back to the place that I started off in, my mindset is completely different now than it was when I was there at first. Completely different than when I went to the other location. And I came back and I realized that a lot of the things that I was going through and the stress that I have and the way that it wore me out mentally, emotionally, physically, those were some things that I just didn't have to go through.
Yeah.
And I made a choice to make a change. It changed, like you say, right? So the enemy at that time was not all of the external things that were going on around me. Though they are things that did affect me, there were some things inside of me that said, man, you can just choose to be different, right? So somebody that I spoke to just recently showed up at my house, and I realized without them saying anything at all that they were going through something. I didn't know what it was, didn't even ask what it was, but I said, hey, check this out. You have the opportunity right now to be okay. You choose to be okay. Right? Doesn't mean that whatever happened you're not right about. Doesn't mean that you're wrong about it. Doesn't mean that it's not true. Doesn't mean that it's not real and relevant. But right now, you can choose to just be okay. And then you can reapproach that situation when you have a cooler head. So I think that type of, like we talked about earlier, critical thinking is absolutely imperative. And so the enemy that I would like to identify, and the enemy that I think that is something that we can actually go after and make an impact if we approach, is the mindset of people that do not have the faculty or the patience to think critically. And when we identify these people, taking a moment to introduce critical thought to them in a way that's going to be productive for their life, I think that is extremely important. That's the enemy. That's the dragon that I feel like I can slay, right? Used to have a guy, I'm finna let you jump in right now. He had a guy that said, you know what, man, I'm not going to pet your devil. Used to say that all the time. Man, I'm not going to pet your devil. Right? You show up, you frustrated, you mad, you this, you that. I'm not going to yeah you to death just to comfort you, because when you're in that off-kilter mindset, you really need somebody that's going to say, hey, you can stop all this right now. I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but what I'm telling you is the way that it's affecting you can be changed just like that. So for me, that's the enemy that I want to run after.
So, and I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. I was trying to make a point. Your enemy is the choice that you make. You make the enemy. So and a lot of it comes from your belief. So you have a lot of guys that gets into gangs. Some of them are forced into a gang because of the neighborhood. Some of them are forced into the gang for protection, and things of that nature. So now that's another enemy. But then you have people that grew up in a home with no father, drug addiction. They have a choice. Who's the enemy? Is the drug going to be the enemy? Is the lifestyle going to be an enemy? Or what? So at the end of the day, of my 24 hours, I have a choice. And it's the choice that I make that's going to determine my enemy. Now, in my environment, we have a lot of people that come out of a hostile environment and still become successful because the choices that we make. I tell my kids all the time, it's the consequences and the repercussions of the decisions that you make. So when you make that decision, make sure that you think about it through, because it's going to be complications and repercussions behind that situation. So I'm going to go back to what I said. It's the choice who you decide is going to be your enemy. Where if it's going to be the game that you play, the job that you own, your boss, the way you wake up, and the way you end your day. And like you said, a guy told you, I'm not going to pet your devil.
That's it.
I'm not going to pet nobody else's devil. If you bringing that negative bullshit around me, I'm not going to pet it. Keep it over there to yourself. So it's the choices that you make is going to be your enemy. Now, if you change your enemy will change.
Now, I agree. I'm not disagreeing. It is the choices. I'm just adding in that you can only make choices based on, like Aaron said, he made different choices after the exposure. You can only make choices based on your exposure.
Right.
I had a lot of friends that did a lot of stuff. How did I not do the same stuff? I was exposed to people from Holland Park at an early age that took me in and said, come over here instead of going over here. Had I not been exposed, I'd have been doing the exact same stuff as my friends.
Right.
But I had a different choice. When it was after school, Ken, where do you want to go? You want to go here or you want to go here? Well, I didn't have a lot of money. I wanted to go make the money. Where was the money? In Holland Park. Mm-hmm. So that choice, but it was the exposure. It was the presence of another option within the choice to be a choice. Some people don't have a choice, and they don't have a choice because it's, when I say programming, when I say, like, have you ever been looking for something in the kitchen? You go in the kitchen looking for salt. Mm-hmm. And somebody says the salt is right there and you can't see it. Your brain actually blocked it out because it wasn't where it was supposed to be.
Right. Your
brain can block out things that are actually there and you can't see them. You can't make a choice on them because you're stuck thinking of one thing. So if I'm stuck because of the games I play and the music I listen to a good opportunity can be right there where that salt is, and you not see it because your brain is blocking you from it, because your brain says, this is the only life available to you.
Right.
This other stuff, I'm not even going to allow you to see it. It's right there in front of you, but I'm not going to allow you to see it. And I'm saying it could be somebody. I'm not saying who it is. We're trying to figure out who it is. I'm saying it could be somebody right there making sure that we don't see the salt where the salt was, because it's more beneficial to them for us to make the choice.
Wrong choices.
The wrong choice.
You're saying something real good, right? So say we drive down just any major street, right? And you're riding with a car full of people. So you're driving, you got 3 people in the car with you, 4-seater. You say, okay, so I'm gonna ride up and down this street 3 times, and I want you to tell me what you see. So when you ride down the street the first time, you give the first person the opportunity to tell you what they see. They'll say, I see Jack in the Box, I see a stoplight, I see Payless shoes, I see this place, that place. Other person goes down, second pass. They tell you other places that the first person didn't see, right? So third person may have a little bit more understanding.
Yeah.
May have been exposed to some different things. And when they ride down the street, they may see a franchise opportunity. They may see commerce and construction.
Yes.
They may see, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's different. This person doesn't see a Popeye's chicken. This person sees, well, that's a franchise opportunity right there.
Right.
And then this right here, this is a street, in fact, that there's not a Starbucks on, because the research that Starbucks did says that this isn't the type of environment that's going to lend well to a customer base for them. And then they ponder those thoughts and say, well, I wonder what it is about this area, why they wouldn't come to a place like this. So it's that mindset. The things that you process and the way you process them are all going to be based on what sets of information you've been exposed to and what level of thought people have introduced to you.
Right.
And so, and where you get your information from is the people you hang around. And
right.
Like you're saying, you're being exposed. As a kid growing up, we're exposed to a lot of different households. Now, you may have one friend that was, well off, or one friend family that was his mom and dad was strict, and then you might have this other family where his family took summer vacations.
Right.
And he would go places and come back and say, well, man, my cousin in California, they doing this. Or, man, my cousin in New Orleans is doing this. And see, I had those type of friends. And then I had those type of friends where they had to be home by the street when the street lights come on. And then what went on when the street lights come on, they wasn't exposed to. So as we got older, we started growing apart because they was accustomed to a different type of life. Then they had exposures for different types of life. And so I started realizing there's something else when the street lights come on that I don't need to be doing.
Right.
I need to go home when the street lights come on, because when the street lights come on, that's when trouble. Then I start getting into the clubs. I start realizing when the club closed, what happened? A fight gonna break out. Shooting gonna break out. Always. Mm-hmm. So my first thing I'm gonna do, 12 o'clock come, and start packing up and leaving. We on the outside. So when the fighting start and the shooting start, I'm out the way. So once again, critical thinking. Pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention and listen to your life. I wake up every morning and I go to sleep every morning. Those 24 hours. I'm not going to let no one take my 24 hours away from me. I'm going to stay in control of my 24 hours. Because a guy can walk up to me pissed off and mad. I don't know what didn't happen to him before he came to me. And he trying to rob me for my 24 hours.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to let him rob me for my 24 hours.
Ken, you think we got any closer?
Well,
no. Yeah. We have a conversation.
We got closer, but it's one of those conversations that it will always be ongoing.
Right.
Because if there is an actual enemy, it's gonna always change.
Right.
It's just gonna always change to something else. The closer you get, the more it's
gonna always be an enemy.
It's gonna always be an enemy. But in the sake of what we're talking about and trying to figure out a way to help, I think we've identified some situations. It's just how do you help in those situations? I can try to take coding classes, but if the parents don't see the value in the coding classes, then it's just me offering coding classes.
Right.
I got to really matter of fact, last week I said I should have started off with parent coding classes. I should have brought parents in, taught them what coding was first, so they'd even know what I was talking about when I said you should put your kids in coding. Right. So a lot of that stuff, but it's conversations like this that lend towards us getting to the outcome. So Aaron, I'll let you do the honors in closing us up like last time. It's about that time.
Okay, before we go though, let's let the viewers and the listeners know where we can be reached at, Ken.
We can be reached at www.rebuildingfutures.com. We can also be reached on all your social media sites. You can follow us, subscribe, please, at Spotify. You don't have to have an account for Spotify to listen to us at Spotify, although we do upload all podcasts to our website.
All right. To all the people out there, first of all, thank y'all for jumping on. Thank you for giving us a listen. We always appreciate when you guys lend us your time. You know, as Elric was saying, you know, there's only 24 hours in a day. And if you choose to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes with us, we appreciate that, because this is a portion of your life to us. This is a portion of your life that you've given to us that we understand you cannot get back. So we're thankful for the time that you spend. So today we just wanted to come in and speak to you guys about, you know, the things that war against us. And although, as it was identified by Ken, this has to be a continual conversation, because the enemy is crafty and will always change forms and change forces. Man, to open up the conversation about things that are at war against our humanity and at war against our social standing, it's very important. We identified a few things. That number one, the enemy a lot of times is circumstantial. The enemy a lot of times is from outside forces. And then at other times, it's the enemy is the inner me. It's something that's inside of me that produces or has a propensity to hold on to the negative elements that get introduced to us. We identified that each person on the face of the earth is a nation in and of themselves, and they have to raise walls, and they have to guard their gates, their eyes, their ears, their mouth, the things that allow influence to come in them and then also influence to go out of them. You have to guard those things. If there's a person in your life right now that's in need, they can reach out to us at all the information that Ken has just given to you guys, right? www.rebuildingfuturespodcast.com. There's always someone available that can reach back to a person that's in need. If you're in need, or if you know someone that's in need, reach out to us. I'll never claim to be a certified by the state, certified by the government counselor, but I'm a person who has, by the grace of God, a really good understanding of life and a willing ear to listen, as well as the other men in this room. If you're one of those people, if you know someone in need, please don't hesitate to reach out. If there's a person that has a need beyond our capacity, then we have resources to help these people as well. We're not only willing to lend these resources, we encourage you to take advantage of them. We'll talk to you next week from the Rebuilding Futures podcast. This is Aaron Charles, Elric Truvillion, and then we got Ken, the man with the master plan over here. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you.